All right, Bulls and Bears, I hope every one of you is doing fine. It is Easter weekend. It's Saturday. I'm putting this video out on Easter Eve. And this is, what is this? April 19th. And putting this out late on a Saturday night. Not a very smart move if you're a YouTube content creator, because that's when the least amount of people are usually chiming in. But don't follow me if you're trying to grow your channel or become a huge YouTube person, because I do all the wrong things. But I do give you the economic news that counts, regardless of what time I put it out. And appreciate you being here. A lot to get into, folks. The American people are in for a very, very rude awakening, and that's an understatement. That might be the understatement of the year. When you see some of the news and information that we had to get to you today, I think you're going to be maybe shocked, maybe not, depending on how long you've been following this type of stuff and the direction of the economy. And basically, just to try to put it in a nutshell for you, the economy's been pumped up and held together by endless creation of money, borrowing money, people spending money they don't have on credit, spending money on credit, and therefore making it look like the economy's growing, making it look like there's a lot of this economic activity, which there is. Buying and selling is economic activity, but people are not benefiting from this economic activity. People are getting further in debt. People are getting further behind. Delinquencies are rising. The home ownership situation has just gotten worse. We're going to get into real estate too here in just a few minutes, but make sure you subscribe here. Let's go ahead and get into the first article right here, piece of news right now. And here's one that I missed the other day. More calls for rate cuts, folks. How insane is this? With all the inflationary pressures happening right now, the inflation that we've seen over the past few years that set records, now the tariffs on top of that are going to cause more inflation, and now new calls for lower interest rate. It's insane, folks. The current administration calls for interest rate cuts, says rates would be lower if the Fed knew what they were doing or understood what they were doing. I don't think they really know what they're doing. I don't think either one of these camps know what they're doing, but lower rates are definitely not the right move in this environment, right? The cost of living is too much. Things cost too much. People are struggling to get by like never before. People robbing Peter to pay Paul, balance transfers to pay off this credit card and do the whole thing again in about a year when the balance transfer introductory rate runs out. We're seeing record levels of money being moved around to avoid paying these high interest rates, and especially on credit cards, right? And we're going to get into those numbers here in a bit. But folks, this is insane. The president said Friday the Federal Reserve Chair Powell should lower interest rates, and he's been saying that for a while, but this is continuing, even though prices haven't come down. Like we were promised, the cost of living was going to come down on day one. We were told that. 3 months in now, it hasn't come down. If we had a Fed chairman that understood what he was doing, interest rates would be coming down too, unquote. That's the current administration. Of course, we all know who that is. Folks, I'm not in one camp or another. I'm not left, I'm not right. I'm just calling it as I see it, folks. I don't think he has any plans for making the economy better for most people. I think he's got plans to make it better for the corporations, better for the top 10 percenters, especially the top 1 percenters, the billionaires. And that's what they are. In order to have someone that's going to be looking out for you or for the middle class, for the average working Joe, what is it? The John Doe? Let me think about that one. What's the phrase? Joe Blow? Who cares? It doesn't matter. Jane Blow? Never mind. Forget I even said that. In order to make things better for the average person, the average working person, the middle class person, which most are living paycheck to paycheck, you're probably going to need someone that's in the same boat, so to speak, or in your shoes, in our shoes, right? The working class shoes. When you have these billionaires running things, which has been like this for forever, and if they aren't rich by the time they get into office, they're rich by the time they get out of office. They're doing this, folks, I think to keep the power at the top, folks. And this is why you continue to see things get more and more difficult for the average person that just wants to work and get by without working his fingers, he or she's fingers to the bone. All right, and I've been talking about this for a while, but look at this one out of the Times. The billionaires who run the economy and the things they say. You have to laugh to keep from crying. One pollster said, the billionaires on the stock market, folks, these people own most of the stock market, about 90% of stocks. The big sell-off that we are seeing in the stock market, it's the people at the top selling. And guess who's holding the bag? The bottom 90%. The top 10%, they're taking their profits. They're getting out while the getting is good, right? Doesn't mean they're not going to get back in and push it back up, right? Because once they take the money from the people left holding the bag, they can come in and buy the dips or buy the bottom. Who knows when the bottom's going to be, but they'll come in and buy the bottom and take this whole thing up for another ride to new all-time highs. Who knows how long? Maybe weeks, maybe months, maybe years, right? We have to go all the way back, though, to the Great Depression to see where it's actually taken years to get out of an economic downturn. If you look at the past few economic recessions and downturns, well, the financial crisis, that took a few years to get out of. But if you're talking a larger number of years, like 5 to 10 years, you'd have to go all the way back to the Great Depression timeframes. Even the financial crisis, was it 2 or 3 years, the market boomed up to all-time highs again because the big money came in and started scooping up stocks left and right. And you also see that in the housing market. You don't see very many big home price corrections anymore because big money comes in as soon as you start seeing some sort of sell-off or price corrections, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how this next one plays out. Will it be inflationary? Will it be deflationary? Will it be stagflationary? Will it be something like we've never seen before? I think it's going to be the latter. I think it's going to be something like we've never seen before. And by the time this plays out, I think they're going to have to come up with a whole new name for it. They're going to have to come up with a whole new name for what we're about to see. It's going to be inflationary, but it's going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. And here's how they put it over at Bloomberg. The first shockwaves of the tariffs are about ready to hit the world's economy. What does that mean, folks? Well, what was the title of our last video? Let me go back to it. Here it is right here. Shockwaves are about to begin. That was the name of the last video I put out over 24 hours ago. So Bloomberg just put this article out with a similar title. Where did it go? First shockwaves are about ready to hit the world economy, folks. Is Bloomberg watching my videos and copying me? I don't think so. I don't think they're copying me, but that's a good name. That's a good, accurate description of I think what's going to be happening here and what's already started happening. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's happening now. Look at all the people that are in dire financial situations. They're struggling. Look at all the evictions. We have a record number of evictions now across over 100 different cities, and it could be thousands. I'm just going off of the news that I've read here. I don't follow every little website or blog from all these local smaller towns, but it's likely thousands of cities now are setting records for delinquencies and evictions and pending evictions too. Remember, things take a while to play through the court system. And I think by the end of this year, people are going to be shocked at the number of evictions that we see. And that's the term shockwaves that are actually being thrown around now by Bloomberg and other outlets. All right. And because it's inflationary and we're probably not going to see manufacturing jobs come back to the U.S., companies are not going to want to open up shop here. You'll see some here and there, but for the most part, I don't think their profits are going to be nice enough to invite or to be inviting to other manufacturers and companies that are thinking about opening up shop here in the U.S. And I don't think they're going to find enough workers. I think the American worker, for the most part, is lazy. And look at the military recruitment. They are having a hard time finding people in good enough shape for even recruiting enough people into the military, folks. And I'm not making that up, folks. Let's just let Google AI, kind of describe this for us here. Military recruitment in the U.S. is facing significant challenges. With multiple branches missing their recruitment goals, the Army has struggled to meet its targets for several years, and the Navy also faces difficulties. A shrinking pool of eligible young adults, coupled with issues like obesity, mental health challenges, and drug addiction, are contributing to the problem, folks. So this is a big, big problem. How much of this is financial and economic? How many people turn to substance abuse because of the financial situation, right? You're always in debt. You're always struggling to get by. You're a hamster on the wheel. Nothing's ever paid off. You never own anything. Even when you think it's paid off, you still have to keep making payments to this person, that person, Uncle Sam. It's a depressing thing for a lot of people to face. And people now in their 40s, 50s, and 60s are looking at themselves thinking, okay, I thought I was going to be kicking back on the beach by the time I was 55, maybe 60, thinking about retiring. Now they're thinking about going back to work or taking on a second job or coming out of retirement or still trying to get retirement and go back, maybe a part-time job, maybe a full-time job. not just to pay for their bills, but now to pay for their kids' bills, their kids who are strapped with a whole bunch of debt for decades, especially student loan debt. When you look at people, and actually people in their 50s and 60s still have their own student loan debt. I think we looked at the number. It was over 1 million people, 50 plus, still had student loan debt. I think that was last fall. I think we talked about that. All right. And I don't want to just go off memory because I could be wrong. So let's look it up. Let me just do a quick search right here for you. How many people in their 50s? Oh my gosh. My goodness, folks. It's worse than I even thought. 7.2 million Americans age 50 or older, according to the survey from 2022. It's probably even worse now. 7.2 million Americans yet to pay off their student loans. People in their 50s, folks, over 7 million. And I'd have to get a more recent number. Who knows? It could be 8, 9, 10 million by now. But that's one of the big reports that came out just in the past few years. This is crazy, folks. All right. Is this a symptom, or is this a sign of the way people are feeling? I mean, when you have this level of debt for this many years, are people turning to substance abuse because of this? I mean, please let me know. Maybe you're one of those people. I've had other vices that I've turned to in times of maybe depression or feeling down. Sometimes it's ice cream sandwiches. Sometimes it's whatever, doing crazy stuff, right? Spending money, that's a big one. People just run up debt. Sometimes it makes them feel better just doing the shopping part of it. But then the paying the money back, that's the hangover. That's the hangover from the party when you have to pay the money back, folks. All right, I'm digressing a little bit. Let's get into the news, though. I got a few other things I want to touch on today. And let's jump into real estate here for a second. Americans are migrating to the Heartland states and driving up home prices. We've talked about this many times. States like Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, around the Great Lakes, even Pennsylvania, especially western Pennsylvania, also Wisconsin, those states around there, Iowa, the cornfield states. What's the proper term, folks? Is it the Heartland? Yeah, the Heartland, basically, that's the name for all those states. We've also got the Rust Belt, whatever you want to call it. You know those states I'm talking about. Nebraska, people are going to those states. A lot of people I know moved from California. Tennessee's in there too, but Tennessee prices have been getting pretty high over the past few years, so it's getting more expensive there too. But Americans are migrating to these states. Home prices in major U.S. heartland hubs like Columbus, Ohio, and Austin, Texas are rising thanks to an inflow of people from other areas. The concerning part about this is home prices are rising now in those states because of the influx, but they're not dropping in the states where people are coming from. Prices are still going up, right? That's the concerning part, because when you see a mass migration of people, you would expect, okay, prices to shift. Prices going up over here, going down over there. But no, they're still going up where they came from and going up even more where they're going to. And that's a huge problem for anyone that ever wants to own a home before they kick the bucket. All right, folks, let's move on to the corporate world. Corporate delinquencies reached the highest since 2017. This is out of PYMNTS, payments.com. The delinquency rate for loans from U.S. banks to both U.S. and foreign companies rose to 1.3% at the end of 2024. That was the highest since the first quarter 2017. Still not a very high number, 1.3%. But well below the 5% seen during the 2008 financial crisis. So are we on the way to 5%, which would be financial crisis type of numbers? Well, we know that you have the buyer and lender of last resort that can come in and buy the debt, buy the bonds, buying corporate debt. We all know that's been happening. So that's another way that they've been keeping companies and corporations alive, is basically by buying the debt, right? So they can do this with the banks, they can do this with companies, and they can have as many defaults as you can imagine, and it's still not going to be the end because you always have the buyer and lender of last resort. All right, let's jump over to this, folks. Another report out there from a major publication saying exactly what I've been saying here for the past many, many months, ever since this whole tariff thing became a thing. And look at this out of Vox. Manufacturing jobs are never coming back to the U.S. Now, of course, that's not completely true because some jobs have already come back. We've also been losing jobs too, but some jobs have come back. So saying all jobs are never going to come back or no jobs would ever come back, that would not be a true statement. But for the most part, we're not going to see a manufacturing boom. And I actually agree with this article here. Manufacturing jobs are never coming back. Putting Americans back to work in factories isn't just hard, it's impossible. Of course, they want me to buy a membership, but I'll basically sum with this article, I'll sum it up what it says. People, especially Americans, don't want to work. Why do you think a lot of the jobs were taken by people that came from other countries, people that came from broken down countries and countries in very bad poverty, because they were already working hard in the countries they came from just to stay alive. And so they come here and they have a better standard of living, and they're still able to do the hard jobs, the hard labor that Americans are not willing to do, for the same reason that people aren't getting into the military, right? Not enough candidates, not enough people can even stand on their feet for 8 hours a day. Unfortunately, even that's not easy. I used to work a job in a manufacturing plant back in Michigan, 8 hours a day on the cement. And even if you had the most cushiony shoes or boots, the feet, they hurt after 8 hours. I think any of you that have worked on your feet 8 hours know the feeling of those hurt feet, and you just want to sit down and kick your feet up when you get off of work. You don't want to go play basketball, that's for sure. And folks, just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier or any more shocking, dire, sad, pick your word. Look at this. Food insecurity driven by inflation has people with higher incomes now turning to food banks. Is this a real article? Let's take a look at it. I mean, it almost seems impossible. People with higher incomes turn into food banks. I mean, we still have a dollar menu at, is it Del Taco is the dollar menu? So why would high income earners be going to food banks? I almost don't believe this article. Let's read it. Inflation has more people turning to food banks for help, including people with six-figure incomes. No way. I'm laughing just because it's so sad, folks. I'm not laughing at people struggling. Six-figure incomes at food banks? You got to be kidding me, right? Struggling to feed their families. Try to pause this annoying video down there. Miss Kelsey of Wallingford, Connecticut is a mother of three who works full-time as a program director at Yale. It's not funny, but I just have to laugh because this is crazy. Yale School of Public Health and sometimes takes on a second job to make ends meet. Their household with two people, they take home a total of $150,000, and that's not enough. Are they going to food banks? Quote, that's not what you bring home after taxes, of course. We have mortgage, insurance. We have one kid on the way to college, one in college. Something as small as a $1,000 expense could throw things off significantly. This goes along with a lot of the news that we've been reading over the past 1, 2, 3 years, saying even six-figure earners are living paycheck to paycheck. Here's another example: $150,000 income household worried about a $1,000 expense. The food insecurity is a lifelong trauma. Having visited food banks as a child is what she said. Quote, to be in a position where you're doing okay and then you lose everything the next day, it's humbling and it's scary, she said. Is she really going to food banks, though? She has relied on help from Connecticut Food Share. Look at this, $150,000 income, folks. The state's largest food bank, on and off for over a decade. She and two of her children now give back by volunteering there. Nationally, more than 50 million people need help getting food from charities, according to the Food Bank Network, Feeding America. In Connecticut, 1 in 8 people are food insecure, according to Connecticut Food Share. This just happens to be a Connecticut article, folks. There's states out there that are even worse, like California, where I'm at. People think that Californians are rich because we live here. No, a lot more people here on payout programs, visiting food banks, and getting by with a big helping hand and the big system of the helping hand, whatever you want to call that, right? What's the word for that? Some would call it the social safety net. There you go. Let me know what you think about that. What do you think about this down below? I kind of struggled to find some of my words today, but at least you know I'm not reading off of a script. This is my true view of what's happening right now. It's pretty sad, folks. I mean, am I wrong? What do you think about the $150,000 household depending on food banks to get by for like 10 years, what they said? What do you think about the over 7 million people in their 50s still paying off their student loans? The calls for lower interest rates on top of the already massive inflationary forces and the high price levels that we're already witnessing right now. Insane, folks. And it's going to be shockwaves, folks. The U.S. household the average working person's in for a very, very rude awakening. So you got to be investing. You got to be on top of this news. Make sure you're subscribed right here with that button. And we'll see you back here next time. As always, keep stacking. Big love. Bye for now. Peace.